to as junk silver in the trade or constitutional coinage, anything like that. All of that combined is roughly $1 billion. And all of the commercial bars combined is roughly $1 billion. So even though the film said 1 billion ounces total, they're referring to the commercial side only. If we combine those two, you got about 2 billion ounces of investment-grade silver available. Gold probably in that same form, in that same context, stab at it, probably 4 billion ounces. So just to be clear, now that's why I gave you that background to move on to this next case. At high prices, silver will be recycled. So in other words, the silverware, the silver art objects, all the silver plate, the silver jewelry, all that stuff that is out there, and I admit is out there, will be recycled. I'm not so sure that it will be. And the reason I say that is there was a study done in 1992 by Charles Rivers Associates, and they went through that very same point. And what they determined was that during what I call the 1980s meltdown, that most of that silver came back into the market between 1980 and 1985. And a lot of the silverware, silver jewelry, art objects, etc., went into the market, flowed through, and became commercial bars after they were re-smelted. I'm not saying that none of it exists out there. Sure, there's plenty of it. But the study determined that it would have to take extremely high prices. Let's face it, people usually want to get what they pay for something. The markup on jewelry, especially silver, is extremely high. Same thing with silverware. And most people that are in those categories don't need the money, usually. The point being, and I believe this to be true, but it cannot be proven, and the market will prove me correct or wrong, not much scrap. There's not as much scrap as many people think, and most of it's in artwork and religious items, and most of those are not coming back in the market. Artwork is just too high a value for the scrap value. Let's use a couple quick examples. Both my daughters play flute. They both have what? Sterling silver flutes. What a surprise, right? I mean, those flutes are like in the $800 to $1,200 range. Okay, you think I'm going to smelt them down for, $12 worth of silver? Are you kidding me? What, anyone here in the equine world? Anyone know what equine is? The horse world? I'm on the English side, but the Western side, there's lots of saddles that have like silver all over them. You see them in the parade sometimes. Some of you guys do know this stuff, I'm sure. You think a saddle that they spent $8,000 for, that's got maybe $400 worth of silver, is going to be pawned for $400? So you got to use your head about this stuff. I'm just giving you a couple of examples. I'm just suggesting to think these things through. You don't have to agree with me, but at least think about them. All right. High prices, will solar be recycled? The answer is yes. It probably will be. Silver's high enough. But the demand for solar is extreme. It's growing just as projected by Jessica Cross out of London a few years ago. I took her work and gave her credit. But she's the one that said she thinks that we'll see 130 million ounces per year used in solar demand starting about 2014. So far, she's pretty much on track. Silver's price is driven by industrial demand. Certainly it is somewhat. It does make up over 50% of the market, but it's actually the monetary demand that's continuing to push the silver prices higher. It's always the margin that moves a market. It's the last buyer that sets the price. And the last buyer in silver is the monetary or investment demand. You got to remember that this is a different market. It's a different globe. It's a different context. What took silver high in 1980 is really a different structural basis than what's taking it higher this time. The problem in the United States with inflation were so minuscule compared to the problems on a global basis now that it's almost laughable thinking back, and I lived through the first bull market, compared to what I think we're facing in the future. Consider the fact that there was only a U.S. market when the price went to $50 an ounce on an intraday basis. And now we have the Chinese, we have all of Asia, we have the Russians, we have the Europeans much more awake than they were last time. There's less silver available than 1980, probably by a factor of 50%. I'll be conservative there, so it's probably half as much investable silver as there was in 1980 right now. The monetary base is 600%, and I've explained that before I get in an argument with anybody. I'm talking about M1, I'm talking about checkbook money and pure cash. I'm not talking about credit, which I don't consider to be money. I consider credit as credit and cash as cash. The internet is connecting people with the truth in quotation marks. I think a lot of people are waking up and finding out what's really going on in the financial system and why it's not working. And it is the poor man's gold. And I always ask you to consider the fact that there's probably a lot more, quote unquote, are rich people. And those people, in my view, and having experience of the last bull market, will gravitate to silver because, one, it's more affordable. You don't have to believe what I believe, but I believe that most people have a financial instinct, just like a survival instinct, that as things start to unwind further in the financial system, they will naturally seek some type of wealth protection. And silver fits that bill pretty well. It has in history past. One of my pets is silver is not money. And you'll get this. I have some of my colleagues that stand on these same platforms. And they're certainly entitled to their opinion. And some of them have said, plain and simple, that silver is an industrial metal, it's not money. I'd like to take you back to Milton Friedman in 1993. He spoke at the Blanchard Conference that at the time was considered to be the foremost authority as far as these type of conferences are concerned. He was the keynote speaker, and he said the major monetary metal in history is silver, not gold. He is a Nobel laureate in economics. I agree with some of his stances, not all of them, but he was a better economist than most. I'd like you to take a look at that picture coming out of a junk bag, as it's called, and tell me, what is that? Is that 5,000 grains of Arabian sand? I mean, really, is it money or isn't it money? I mean, I think it's pretty clear, especially if you go back to the 1792 Coinage Act with the Constitution and look at what money is defined as. A dollar is a weight of silver, right? 371.25 grains of fine silver is what a dollar is defined as. You know? So it's money. I mean, I won't back down on that argument. The silver specie standard, which means silver coin standard, was widespread from the fall of the Byzantine Empire until the 19th century. It lasted longer than the gold standard. In 52 countries, the word for money is silver. In other words, the word money and silver are synonymous. How many are on my mailing list? Just put up your hand. Some of you got my latest email about a week ago or so that talked about, watch this little video called The Empty ATM. Put up your hands if you watched that. If you were paying really close attention to that during that whole half hour or whatever it is, the gentleman out in Argentina was saying plata, and that's silver. But he's speaking about money. He said he wanted his money out of the ATM. Plata. Plata is silver. So for me to just go to the Latin-based languages and say that, you know, silver is not money, I'd be saying, well, money isn't money or silver isn't silver. They wouldn't understand what I was talking about. The Chinese character for money is a building with silver bars, not gold.